Well, welcome to our New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition Homeschooling Through High School and Beyond workshop. In the first half, the first 45 minutes or so here, we're going to try to focus on high school itself. And then in the second half, we're going to go into things like writing transcripts and college applications or resumes for employment and all that kind of thing. So I am Stephanie Marsh. I'm the coordinator of the New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition, and I've been homeschooling for now, I'm going into my 27th year. And I have 5 children, 4 of whom have graduated from homeschooling and gone on to college. And just being on the coalition board has given me the chance to see lots of different ways people homeschool through high school. So hopefully I can give you some information about that. So we have a couple of parents here who have also homeschooled through high school and are going to share their experiences. So Paula Marie Passon, can you tell us a little about yourself, how many kids you have, where you're from?
Sure. I'm from Amherst, New Hampshire, summertime Walton Borough, and I have 5 children, 4 who have graduated from homeschooling high school, and have gone off to college, and I'm in my last one doing high school this year. So we'll start off in new high school here.
I'm Melissa Florio. I live in Freedom, New Hampshire. We have 3 girls. One just graduated homeschool high school and is going to college in a month. And I have one that's a sophomore this year as well. So I think I'm still learning.
Oh yeah.
I'm still learning everything. Yeah.
And all the resources keep changing too,
Yeah.
so it does keep changing as time goes on. So I have some questions planned, and I'm just going to throw them out to each one of you. And, you know, we may not get to the answers to all the questions tonight because we're moving along kind of quickly, but we can always have more workshops and answer questions online and put more things on our website and all that. So, first question I'm going to ask Paula Marie. What does your high school program include? It's probably different for each child. And how do you decide what subjects to include in the program?
With each of my children, it is different of how I've done it, but when I first began, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, I tried to make sure that we did everything we were supposed to. So your math, language, literature, science, history, writing, they had to hit everything. But now that I'm on that 5th child, I'm a little more lax, and I'm realizing, you know what, you can do science and history together depending on what you're doing for your curriculum. So it doesn't have to necessarily be you have to have that science and you have to have that history book. So we're fitting in all the subjects, we're just doing it a little bit differently today.
Oh, yeah, a little more freewheeling, it sounds like sometimes you do when your kids are younger, you know. Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Melissa? How do you decide which subjects you're going to teach?
That's definitely, you know, from when we were younger, when they were younger, when they found a passion, when you were covering something in a history class and they showed that they really loved it, and you as a homeschooler could spend more time on that subject. You didn't have to just ride over it and go, no, we need to get all this done, we got to get a test done. So that's kind of carried on. So when, you know, Cora got into high school and she started showing a lot of interest in psychology, we started figuring out, we could try to make this class into her science, and we could try to figure out how to, because we knew she hated math, you know, so we're like, okay, we did the basic math that we needed in order to check the box for high school graduation, and then that was done, you know, and then we moved on to the subjects that she did love and tried to, so she kind of created that path, and it's the same with Anya. Anya's very good at math. She's already, you know, doing calculus, so it's allows us to customize what their passions are and and use it to explore what's not their passion, you know, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, oh no, but I definitely, Anya took a gaming class because she was like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I'm like, I don't know, kid. So she tried the gaming and was like, no, not gaming, you know, so it also helps do that too.
And of course, we're talking a little bit more about structured classes. Well, even though the class doesn't have to be structured, as you said, but a list of classes. But there are plenty of people out there who are unschooling and kind of just doing what they want to do as it comes up. But, you know, even they have the freedom to, if a child says, well, you know, I think I might want to go to college and do my wildlife forestry studies. Oh, I guess I better have algebra too. That child can just pick up the books and study it on their own too, or find an online class or whatever. So.
And some of those classes can be taken through volunteer work and internships.
Mhm.
I know we did a lot of those. Once they find their niche of what they enjoy and what they'd like to study for college, instead of having to be that book study.
Yeah.
It's through that life and more of that unschooling sort of
I
thing.
have something on a handout, and there are handouts on the left table there that you can take, and there are transcript samples and things on the right-hand table we'll talk about later. But one of my sons did something where he was really into astronomy, and he read about, I don't know, 10 different books, all the Carl Sagan stuff. He got himself a telescope. We wrote that into a science class because he could certainly spend as many hours as an awful lot of people would do in a high school class, so that worked. And so were you at this point choosing your classes based on any list anywhere or New Hampshire? Because that's a question we often get, how do you choose?
Yeah, I think it's just because I went to college, so I knew what I needed to have in order to meet college requirements. You know, as far as graduation, I never actually went to an official website and went, oh, I need to have this many maths and this many science. And you just kind of knew, okay, 4 years English, 3 years, you know, so that's kind of what we use as our guideline.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So, how have each of you approached studying advanced or specialized subjects, something like lab sciences or foreign languages or what do I have here? Welding and what other resources do you use that maybe make a course in and of themselves, things like EMT programs or civil air control or whatever. I'm sure different kids have done different things. So,
For my children, a lot of times the website for New Hampshire Homeschool Coalition, a little plug, you have people that write in and they offer different programs, as you know. We start looking in through other organizations that we belong to and the homeschooling groups, and you sort of find out, okay, who's teaching the math that's a retired teacher maybe, or we've used a lot of different, Patrick Henry College offers classes, AP classes for people, and we've used things like that, and then there's always the dual enrollment for your community colleges to get your children involved with. So that's how we've done it, to make sure that we've
okay, so
done
some of those things, Patrick Henry is one of the colleges. Our community colleges are very welcoming to homeschool students, you know, almost at any age, I would say. So that's places like NHTI in Concord or Great Bay. There's a lot of them, and that's easy.
And most of the colleges that offer the dual enrollment will offer them while your child's in the high school level at a much cheaper rate, so you're not paying that same college tuition.
Right. And of course, I'm more from the homegrown, teach the group classes, do the co-ops, which is another option. But okay, so Melissa, how did you handle some of the things like maybe a foreign language or a lab science, or you know?
Yep. Let's see. So foreign language, we have Krista Franca. The girls have had Krista Franca since they were in preschool, and they still do. So she did French and German with them, so that was excellent.
She teaches language classes at the German Association in Manchester. I know a lot of homeschoolers take those classes. But she's doing classes that are just for like a little homeschool.
Yeah, she
class.
will do a lot. Like she does, I think one in Wolfboro, co-op class that she started last year or the year before in Wolfboro. And so she does do pockets here and there where she'll do one-on-one tutoring or she'll do classes. So that was great. For science labs, we did some through, I'm blanking on it, a great course. No, is that it? Great
Well,
courses?
a great course on the labs.
Well, they did like anatomy and physiology. So
Yeah.
then I went and had anatomy and physiology in college. So then I was able to work that with Cora at the same time. You know, so some of those things. But I do know other people who went to the local high school and go in and just do chemistry or just do the, you know, whatever that one class is that they were looking for to have in order to get the equipment access. You know, because that's the hard thing sometimes. We've done online biology classes with Houghton Mifflin, which is really cool because it's like a virtual. Some things we do in the house, you know, with microscopes and things, and we get all the supplies, but some things you can do virtually as well online, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a science background, so for years I taught the biology labs or the chemistry labs for homeschoolers. Sometimes the whole class, you know, the textbook and the labs, or sometimes just lab classes or things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of retiring from that, but you know, before there were the online things, there's always a mom or dad out there who maybe has a biology or chemistry background or really enjoys dissecting frogs. So, you know, that's another reason why it's really good to connect with support groups, and also why I wish that I can encourage anyone in a support group to have some face-to-face meetings, because as you get to know each other, then you find, oh, really, you did biology? Well, would you help my kids, look through the microscope? And chances are that parent might say, oh yeah, sure, and you get a little group of 5 kids together, and it'd be really helpful. Were there any other particular things that would not fall into the category of regular classes? Well, okay, I guess that's jumping into what other kinds of activities did your students do. Sometimes those are social and sometimes they're educational. So, Melissa, what kinds of things, how did they connect, or how did they?
Yeah, it's so funny how many times the girls have been, oh, you're homeschooled, you don't, you're so socialized, and I was like, well, I think they socialize way more, the way that they are. They have, they're regular physical education type stuff. They're in gymnastics, they're in dance teams at the high schools. But they also have like theater groups, they're in book clubs, there's just so much. I think we probably over push the kids to make sure that they're out there and doing stuff, not just sitting in their pajamas all day. In front of the TV or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely, I think we're just more aware of making sure that they connect.
Well, it's nice to have downtime, and then, so your kids have actually been doing things over at the local high school, so they've got friends all places.
Yeah.
Okay. Paula Marie, how about your kids? What kinds of things do you do?
Ours would be about the same. We've had children that have played sports at the high schools, which has been really nice. We've done theater groups, we've done co-ops, we've done cheerleading, all kinds of different aspects, and there's so many different opportunities. You just have to sort of search for them, and once you find them and you get your kids involved, then you just sort of, it snowballs. You find that many more.
Yeah.
So once you can get yourself connected with the group, it's usually really easy to start finding other things to get involved with.
Yeah.
So we've never had a problem with social or athletic or anything, other extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
There's always been things.
So if any of you are like new homeschoolers considering homeschooling, that question always comes up: are they socialized? And then people meet our kids and often think, "You're homeschooled, but you're so." I don't know, what do they say? Out there, if we're talking about that? No, never. But one pointer, though, for social aspects that's important for high schoolers. In a lot of areas, there are high school activities just for homeschoolers, a little game night or activity group. There's teens together over in Concord. It's really nice to start, if you just started homeschooling, you don't have a lot of homeschool friends, work on that around ages 12, 13, 14, because as the students get older, it's harder for them to break into a group of teenagers and make friends. I don't want to say that homeschoolers are unfriendly, because I think they're more friendly than some of the groups that you might find at a public school, but just in the sense that, you can put 6-year-olds on the floor with Legos and everything's fine. If you bring a 15-year-old guy into a group of 8 people playing a game and they all know each other, it can be harder to get to know each other. So you look around for those opportunities at around the junior high ages, high school, so that when they're high school age, they're really comfortable in saying, I like the kids in whatever it is, cheerleading, or the theater group, or my sailing group, or form a group of people who play games or something like that. So
Can I interject a little?
yes,
That
please.
also opens the door. I don't know. I have a daughter that's 14 going into high school, and we deal with anxiety. And going into new places, doing new things is not easy. So there are often times where I can throw something out and say, oh, look, there's a perfect opportunity where we can meet some new people. And her initial reaction is, I'm not interested, Mom, I'm good. So that can bring a challenge into the homeschooling also, because you really have to figure out what's going to be best. But again,
Right.
I was thinking the same exact thought, because both my older daughters, we were going to perform it the very first time. I was driving them to perform it, and I enrolled them in it, and they hated my guts. And all the way down there, they're like, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, when you're a teacher says you just have to do something that you have to do it. But when you're that parent too, so they get there, they walk in the door, and they were very welcomed, and they met friends, and going home, they're like, that's awesome. The next week, they're like, I'm not going. So I was just like,
Yes.
like, okay, I need some wine, too.
Yeah, especially my olders were shy. It is nicer to go to a new thing if you have a sibling, or, if you have a friend you made when you were 12 years old, and then you and the other family decide, let's take both of our kids to the blah, blah, blah event. It's a little less scary to walk in. And, the nice thing about homeschooling, too, is you don't feel as though your children have to happily spend all hours of every day with 25 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I would not enjoy that. So, it's fine if they like to have a lot of alone time and then still have a few activities, especially if it's something they love and they'll do it. Yeah. Are there any skills or subjects that are particularly helpful for your students to learn, like note-taking or time management or talking with adult teachers and things just for people to remember on the path of high school? Also, Marie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I love the topic of public speaking.
Oh, yeah.
So if nothing more, it helps them with being able to work with other people.
So have you done that in something like public speaking groups or theater, or how?
We've done that. We've done theater, where I know one session with my older boys, it was all on monologue. So I can tell you that was a subject they weren't happy with when we did it. But by the end, it was very rewarding because both my older boys were like, oh, we did it and we survived. And they did a fantastic job. But yes, we've done, and of course the words going through my, it's been lost, the competition. Debate, yes. So where they haven't done any of the actual competitions, but they've done the classes where they're learning how to debate and whatnot. And it's good because it teaches them also to advocate for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say theater. I know, I don't know if it's this generation, but with the use of phones and texting, they don't talk a lot. They just text to each other, even though it's like if they're on there texting, you're texting, why don't you just pick up and talk? But so that's a little harder for them. So having that theater, learning how to project, learning how to act, and it's carried over into when Cora had to go for some of her interviews. Or pick up the phone and talk to an admissions counselor, she acted it, a little bit. She was able to put herself into a role and use that as a skill, be able to talk to adults in that fashion. And then I would say time management is huge. We worked very hard on, getting a spiral notebook calendar and then charting out what does their courses look like for the week, and what do they have for activities that they want to do, and sleep and skiing, and because there's sometimes when they're in theater, it just takes up weeks and there's no school that gets done.
Change it,
Yeah, so right now we're doing writing for Anya in the middle of the summer because Anya's Anya. So it doesn't get done in May. We're still doing it in July. So there's
one thing that used to get mentioned is that homeschoolers in general have some opportunities to learn time management, so that you might say, this is the chapter in the chemistry book we have to do this week, and we'll do this lab, but we don't have to do it on a particular day. It depends on which day we're taking the cat to the vet or whatever. And in public school, you're usually given your assignments day to day to day. It's chopped up. So you don't really have to think about, well, if I'm going to read this much of A Tale of Two Cities and answer these questions, where am I going to put those things? That is another thing to be aware of with online courses, particularly online public school courses like VLAX, which is very popular. They're great, but they're also full of daily work, which means that they get told what to do every day. And honestly, another thing to consider is sometimes it's a lot of busy work too. In other words, your child with their own textbook and a book to read might get through the material more quickly because they don't have to do as many assignments. I know you may be worrying, well, if they don't do the assignments, how do they learn to write? But sometimes we almost over-assign, think of Abraham Lincoln reading his books by the fire in a log cabin, So those are, I always worry about note-taking, but, I don't know.
I know, I agree. Nowadays with the computers, I fight all the time with them. They like to take their notes on the computer, and I keep showing them all these studies in a book. You take it by hand.
Yeah, have you seen that? If you write it down, it sticks in your head more.
Yeah,
So I'm
it's
so
an
happy.
ongoing battle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How do you keep your kids motivated, especially when they don't want to learn things? Okay, so Melissa, how about that?
Yeah, it's hard.
I guess that goes with the time management too, because there are also times when, okay, so I know we do theater and, oh, yeah, I guess I also want to mention, my kids have done debate and mock trial, which is more public speaking and it has been very valuable. Sometimes you have an activity that takes over everything else and then you have to tell the kids, so now you still have to finish the algebra book.
Yeah, it's
So
hard.
how do you keep them motivated?
The subjects that they love, you know, that's not the problem. You know, those ones they get done and they've done, you know, the science or the math or whatever that passion that they each have, it's the ones that they don't like. That's the one that's hard to keep them motivated. And, you know, I'll say, okay, let's sit down and do it together, you know, and they get all, I can do it, you know, I don't need you watching me. I'm like, I know, you can do it. Yes, but you're not doing it. So that's the hard thing is the ones that they don't enjoy, is trying to find ways to make it enjoyable and trying to tie it into other things that they are doing, and then trying to customize it and make it as enjoyable as we can so that we get it done. Because there's just some things you have to do. I mean, you can't not learn how to write an essay. You know, like even if you become an engineer, you have to write a lab report. You have to write so you have to learn how to write. And she's like, you know, so there's definitely friction that you wouldn't have in a classroom, but at the same time, there's a lot more ability to customize it. So it's a struggle, but
Actually, one thing that happened with us once, but both good and bad. I mean, we have a lot of sciencey, mathy kids, not all of them, so they don't always enjoy writing. And I try to not assign too much writing. I think a lot of times the kids get burned out in school. I'd rather see a really good, 6-page paper with a bibliography than a paper every week that's kind of bad. But we prepared my second youngest prepared a presentation for New Hampshire History Day a few years ago. He had gone. So you have to write a very long paper with all sorts of notes and footnotes and bibliography and everything. And it was miserable. I mean, he was practically in tears near the end of it. But because he wanted to participate in History Day and he had signed up, he knew he had to do it, just like learning your lines in a play or something. And when he had finished it, he was really glad, And I'm not sure I could have made him write such a rigorous paper if he hadn't known, I need to submit this, and I'm competing with other kids, and it's going to be judged by all these history teachers from across the state. So sometimes you do have to be a need. Also, we always do just stop what you're doing and go run around the house, which especially works for 10-year-old boys. But anyway, So Paul Marie, how about inspiring kids?
See, I have to chuckle with that because my 4 older children, I really didn't have to inspire them. They did great on their own because with my older boys, they would look at it as, well, if we get our homework done really soon, then we can go out and we can do what we want to do.
That is exactly what my oldest
So
two
that
did.
was really easy. My youngest one that I'm dealing with right now, if anyone has any suggestions, I'm right now, for last year as an 8th grader, the motivation was you want to go with your friends Friday night to the mall, you have to make sure your assignments are done. She's my challenge child. That's what I keep telling her and her siblings, and I'm constantly going. Keep in mind, my kids, we have like a 16-year age difference between the oldest and the youngest. So it's a constant, hey Steven, what did we do? How can I motivate your sister? What do I do? Because she's a challenge for me. Love her to death, she's great, I'm going to find that niche, I know I will. But in the meantime, right now, my motivation is if we want to go to the mall.
That's funny because my youngest is the one that's like, what is wrong with them? Don't they realize that they just get it done? They can spend the rest of the day watching YouTube videos. Like I'm just like, I don't know, man.
My oldest two are like that. But my youngest son is very social, so he would know. Okay, I'm going to go do math for an hour, and I'll come downstairs. But it was always, I have to come downstairs and just visit. Hi, what's everybody doing? And his younger sister would go, I'm doing school. Go away. I just want to see what you're doing. And I doing stuff, But we lived through it, and they accepted him into college.
All is good.
Yeah. So now, just really briefly, because we're gonna go into detail in the second half, what records do you keep? In other words, a little bit of just help for people as you're starting high school, keeping portfolio and knowing that you're gonna need records in the future. What do you have to keep an eye out for, Paul? Yeah.
For me, I have a notebook, and everything we do every single day, I document it. So that way, if I ever need to look back and say, did we read that chapter? Because we missed, we skip or whatever. There's always documentation of what we've done.
Now, does that go partly with, because we were talking and you also use, for at least some of the kids, an accreditation transcript service? So
That also
they
helps
like
out
to
with
have a
that as
logbook
well.
or something?
Yes, but I
Okay.
don't have to submit that to that school. But I'm able at again, if they have any questions in regards to assignments or whatnot that we've done, I can always go back and look it up. So that they know what is attached with it.
So, in New Hampshire, you have to keep a portfolio, even if you don't have it evaluated. You are supposed to be keeping a portfolio for a couple of years beyond when that work was last done. So things like flyers from plays and field trips and or really cool experiences that you have that you might forget later. One time we were taking a walk when the kids were littler and they're pretend costumes and uniforms and passed our neighbor's house, and it turned out he had an old colonial musket, which he then showed them and showed them how to shoot. But you wanted to write that down. They had the experience of learning about blah, 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 things like that. So what records did you keep, Melissa?
We kept everything, but it was just more like in a box. I didn't really record what they were doing every day. So when it came time to actually have an official portfolio, the girls really more handled that than I did.
Oh, really?
Because we would bring in, every year we bring in Gail Hardy, and she's been doing it since they were in kindergarten, and she evaluates their work, and so they spend probably 2 weeks before she comes, and they organize everything that they want to show her. The books, they'll create a book list of all the books that they read. They'll take out samples of things that they might have drawn or wrote, or so then they'll be up there with her for 2 hours talking her ear off of everything that they're proud of that they've done.
That's very cool.
So then when it came time to we actually have to have this actually really documented. That's why I went back and had to try to backfill grade 9 and 10 for Cora. 11 and 12 we kept doing it, but creating what was every single class she took and what was the description, and some of them we were able to just get from the inside of the book cover that we might have been using.
I got a couple samples.
We would write down all the text that she read.
So you don't want to forget which books you used in 9th grade if your kid's already in 11th grade.
Because that was really, and then program enrichment, what did they do? Was there plays that we saw, or was there field trips we went on? And so all those things I added in too. So, and we had to send this to every college. It was huge. So that was now we've got Anya started already, and got hers going for 9th grade and going into 10th. But so that was something I didn't realize.
Sometimes just throwing notes on the computer. Way back when I started homeschooling, we were still required to submit a scope and sequence. It didn't have to be approved by the school district or private school; it just had to be acknowledged. But still, you were supposed to list the subject and say what you might be doing. You were free to say, well, we on school, so we'll be learning whatever Bobby decides is interesting. But usually what it did is, it made you go out to the library and say, oh, I read this book, and I'll write down these titles, we'll probably use these. And then the year happened, and you did a lot of what was on your list, and maybe you did some different things and other things you didn't do, but you could look at it and then go modify it, and it was there. And I found that since the law changed, and I don't have to do that legally, I have to force myself to make that nice list, because I plan out what we're probably going to do for school. We're pretty freewheeling, but then at the end when you have to record it, it really does help if you can sit in the summer and say, let me write down everything that we did last year, or get all those textbooks and those extra things that we used and record them. And so have we covered all the record keeping stuff with you? And okay. All right, so how are we doing time-wise? Yeah, we're ready. Probably opportunity for a few questions, if there are some questions from anyone in the audience or things they'd like to talk more about. Yes.
When you were talking about someone was talking about the foreign languages, and you had more of it seems like a teacher directed.
Yeah.
So I tried to sit back and really think about, okay, why would we want to take a foreign language, right? Like, and I want my girls to be able to speak a foreign language. So can you, like, at the college level, would they allow them to take Babel or something like that?
Okay.
Without the, you know, the actual, like, this is a verb in
Rosetta.
Spanish, this is, you know, can you, and forgive me, but can I make that their foreign language, and will someone still say, yes, that's acceptable, or no, you really didn't have the composition side of that language?
Right.
So how do you tweak that? How do you know, like, and say my girls want to go on and study a foreign language in college, am I going to set them back?
Well, and one thing to be aware of, and I have a list of different requirements for different types of colleges and all, but a lot of them are, if we take as our base something like UNH, they want to see 2 or 3 years of foreign language. Colleges have been very happy to see homeschoolers do study at home. So there are a lot of different online programs that are a class, like a VLAX class. Also, something like Rosetta Stone includes not just the stuff you get on Babbel or on Duolingo. Duolingo gets a little tricky with the voice recognition. It's not quite as good because I play with all of them. I love foreign languages. But if you've completed all 4 levels of Rosetta Stone, it really is like 4 years of college. And my daughter did that with French, with a little help from me. And when she went to Connecticut College, she completely placed out of all the French 1, 2, 3, and 4 and into literature. My son used Rosetta Stone and a tutor for German and went up through the 4th level, but when he got to college, he did not place out of all the German. So, but in any case, he had been studying it for 4 years. With my youngest daughter, she started Rosetta Stone and working with me, and she really hates it. So we use a textbook also, and we go through it because I can do the French, but I remember back in the early days, you would get, you know, most of it was Christian suppliers, but there's all kinds of suppliers now, Rebecca or Bob Jones, or there's others out there. And it comes with either a CD or these days, you know, an online access, so that you can be doing the exercises in the book and then listening to the lesson and repeating back. So there are all sorts of packages you can get, and the colleges are happy with that. They don't exactly care what level you're at exactly, just that you've put study time into it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And the other thing too is if they don't want it, they just want to show proficiency, you can take the SAT,
Right,
the,
which is what SAT
like
2 subject.
thank
tests.
you.
Right.
Oh, I like the word there.
Yeah.
The subject class, and then they could show that they were proficient in it, and those colleges would be happy with that.
But say, I'm wondering with my youngest, if she would really be good enough to take that SAT subject test in French, which her sister did. But she's been studying it for 4 years, so at least, you know, she is taking time to learn a foreign language over 4 years, which you can liken to something like, some kids are doing Algebra 2 and pre-calculus and calculus. Some kids are doing, you know, 7th grade math, 8th grade math, Algebra 1, maybe Algebra 2, maybe consumer math, and they stop there. But they're still doing math every year, you know. It just, people may be doing it at different levels. But colleges have been very accepting of a lot of these different online programs or textbooks with a CD or a link now, or basically doing it at home by yourself. That's okay. You'll also see that it is offered at VLAX, the online free public high school for New Hampshire, and then many, many other distance learning resources we have listed on the New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition website. We have curriculum suppliers. We also have distance learning. I don't even mush these pages together. Ask the webmaster. But you'll see there are lots of online high schools where you can sign up for just this course or that course. You do pay, but you know, it's an option.
And just to add to that, I'm not quite sure, is your child looking to do language as a career? Or?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just trying to hit all the bases and
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you do
Yeah.
consider that.
Like they said on the school, my 2 older boys, actually my 3 older boys, just a year of one language 2 years of another, and it wasn't their thing, but they wanted to do it. We did Rosetta Stone, and I think we did a couple of book type things. It wasn't a big deal. It was just being able to say they've done it. It was their home study for it. And when they got to college, I know one of my children took another French class, and he just started from the beginning like a typical freshman would. So it's just, I think, there to show that you're willing to learn, and I don't think it's as stressful as, it doesn't have to be as stressful.
Any other specific questions about high school? Yes.
I have a question. You talked a little bit briefly about how you got to write. I was wondering other ways to get boys to write.
Writing. Well, I'm writing
Not just
programs. How
boys.
you teach writing. That's a really good topic. Yeah. Anybody in particular want to handle that, or I've done it lots of different ways.
For Cora, it wasn't a problem. Cora loved to write. You know, she would write all day. She writes too many adjectives when she writes. But you know, Anya is not our writer. She has ADHD. Sitting down and having to write is not. She doesn't like to spell. She spells atrociously. So we've tried every trick in the trade. We've tried, you know, we have the verbal software where she can just speak, and that seems to be the best thing at this moment in time for her. So, you know, she has a prompt, and you know, she loves history, so we try to tie it into something she might be learning at the time, and we just focus on whatever skill it might be that she has to learn, with comparing or contrasting or persuasive essays, and so she's now. It was a struggle, 8th grade, 9th grade. It's now that she's heading into 10th grade, with that verbal tool that we found, it's not so much a struggle. She has to sit there and try to type and try to think, and she's able to speak it, and she's a great speaker from theater and all. She loves to talk, just doesn't like to write. So that's been very helpful, finding that software.
I often just say to my kids, well, what would you say?
Like, do you use a program, or what do you have them write, or do you do book reports or essays, or do you just say, find something interesting and write it?
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
There's different writing programs out there that you can use.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
So there's Memoria Press, that's one I've used that worked well.
We used
Institute for Excellence in Writing.
I was going to say Excellence in Literature is what we use. So American Literature from Everyday Education, and then I think in 10th grade we used, it's another one of theirs, I think it's British Literature. Excellence in Literature, British Literature. And so they give you some prompts. So it's a lot of reading and then prompt work, but
And this is for high school?
And you'll see a lot of these on, the curriculum section on our website. One thing I've learned, so you heard me mention earlier, I sort of feel as though sometimes we get kids burned out. We will focus on maybe writing for a while, or maybe we're reading poetry and we write some poetry, and then we stop. Then we're reading, or we're doing grammar, or we're doing history. Rather than constantly doing, say, a writing program and lots of assignments constantly over 4 years. I feel very strongly that kids can only write to a certain extent what they read. That's why if you've got the second grader who really wants to write a story, great. But sometimes we try to, have kids, and even high school kids, write wonderful, essays about what's going on in the Middle East. Well, if they're not even reading news articles or a book that's telling them, how are they going to write that? So we do ours in spurts. We'll do, 3 or 4 weeks of grammar, then we stop, we don't do it. Then we do, let's write an essay. So first we learn a standard 5-paragraph essay, which gets pretty boring. And you can find references to all this kind of stuff online. So an introduction and
Susan Weisbauer is
yeah,
what we
lots
use a
of
lot.
But then we take a break from it. So, and I have also found that different writing programs appeal to one of my kids and then doesn't appeal to the other child at all. Actually, this is another great reason to have support groups and get together. And hopefully, I think I'm going to see if we can do this with our local group again. We used to have evenings where the topic would be writing, or it would be foreign language, or it would be math. And people would bring in their curriculum, and say, this is what mine looks like, or, you know, my ADHD kid loves this one, but my real studious, shy kid who's quiet hates this one. And you actually got to look at it and see, I think I like this, I think I wouldn't like this, and it's very helpful. So sometimes just connecting, make sure you get in a support group, talk to other homeschoolers in your area or in your New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition rep, because they're usually pretty experienced or can connect you with somebody who can give you other ideas. But so take a look at what's out there and see where the gaps are. And another thing is sometimes they don't want to write much, say 9th grade and 10th grade, and if you don't force it too much, by 11th grade sometimes they're, yeah, I guess I need to write now, or I really have something I want to say about this, and they write. And also I will often just say to my kids, well, how would you tell me this? And then I say, okay, now you can write it. I've often thought of recording them, but it sounds like Melissa's talking about a program that actually does that.
Yeah.
So you could say it and stop.
Have you started a writing program at all yet?
No, we haven't, and we've homeschooled for many years.
Yeah.
One of the things, the tricks that I used to do, because my older boys didn't like to write, every morning, journal. I don't care if you just write 5 sentences, just journal in the morning, just whatever's on your mind. And then we talk about, all right, did you formulate your sentences and use the proper grammar when you did that? And that's how we began our writing. Then they don't feel like they're really writing.
Okay. Well, I think we should take a very brief break momentarily. We're going to do the second half, which is about transcripts and college things. We're going to let Amy stop the video and start it again. If you want to get up and stretch for a second,